All right, we're live. Welcome, everyone, to the Chicago Football Connection podcast. I'm your host, Steve Letizia. Follow me on Twitter at CFC Bears. Joined by my co-host, Luke O'Grady. Follow him on Twitter at Luke O'Grady. A lot happened this weekend. I was out of town on vacation. Of course, everything happened. Then I got sick, so we didn't really have a chance to go, get on the podcast, go live, and talk about it. But we're talking about it now, which I think is good because it gives us a couple days to really reflect. Because when the trade
settled.
Dust is settled. When the trades first happened, I started tweeting and I was drunk and I was like, I shouldn't be doing this. So I think I'm going to have much more reasonable thoughts now than I would have had this weekend. So
yeah, for sure. You were definitely having some thoughts then.
Yeah.
But also too, I think that like my thoughts now are different than they were the day of. I think having a little bit of time to sit with it and reflect on what was the conclusion of the Justin Fields era, which is crazy to say.
It's tough. It's bittersweet because this is the direction I think is best for the franchise, but also we all wanted Justin Fields to succeed and be that guy, and so it was bittersweet for sure. Because he's such a nice guy, such a leader in the locker room. It's tough to see him go, but I do think it's interesting in that, like both of us have said, our reactions now are different from our reactions like when it first happened. So, like, what was going through your mind when the news first dropped?
Like news first dropped, like I think it was probably due to how like divisive the conversation had been. And it kind of goes back to what you said, being that like, it's painful because you think it is the right move, but I loved Justin Fields. I wanted Justin Fields to be the guy so badly. And like I have a Justin Fields jersey I probably won't be wearing a whole lot much anymore.
Yep.
But when it happened, because I was kind of on board with you don't get the first pick twice, take the best quarterback and get what you can for Justin Fields. I was happy. And as the time has passed, I'm still happy. I think now it's like we've just kind of transitioned that now it's Caleb mode. Like we know what the Bears are going to look like next year. It's that like the offseason is starting to really have already taken shape kind of quickly, especially with the Keenan Allen move, which we will talk about. But now that like that's kind of the straight ahead path and there's no disagreement about that's where the Bears are headed. It is kind of like sad to look back and be like, damn, man, like I've looked at some of the highlight videos and some of the stuff that Fields did and some of the games and some of the moments and
yeah. I had the same thoughts. My first thoughts, I'm not proud to say, were I told you so, and I'm glad I was not near my phone. But now, like looking back at it, like that was such a terrible way to think, and I'm sad that was my first thought. And I'll admit it, that was my first thought, but that's a stupid way to think, and it's really just like a toxic way to think. So,
especially because we both love Justin Fields,
right? Exactly, and
but it was like it felt that this was the clear path forward, and honestly, it felt like to not do this. I think in both of our opinions would have set the franchise back. It would have been the wrong decision, and It was a bit of relief of like, okay, like they're doing the right thing, and also. It didn't ever make really any sense to keep Fields in this situation. I don't know how other people didn't see it. When the move came, there was a little bit of like,
Yep.
Well, no, duh.
Right.
The quarterback has never beaten the Packers in 3 years, got shipped away. That's life.
Right. Yeah. But I do think he went to a great spot for him. There was, the things about saying like they took less to send him to the Steelers. I don't know if I'm buying what Ryan Poles is selling there. I think he kind of screwed up his market, but I do think he went to a good spot for him because I think he's going to compete with Russell Wilson, but I do think their plan is to have him be the backup at least for half the season or something, so he can kind of sit and learn and kind of shake those bad habits that he developed because of a poor situation that he was in Chicago. He definitely developed some bad habits, or maybe just didn't develop like he should have because he was just thrown into the fire like that. But I think taking a step back for him is going to be a good thing. And I think he'll be the starter for the Steelers in 2025. And I hope he balls out.
Yep, I do too. I like Fields. I like Fields, the guy. I tweeted this week. We got the first pick again.
Yeah.
If we had the pick or the fourth pick, we would have had some really weird, tough decisions. But at that point, with the way the roster's built up and Fields in-house and his, second year in the system, if we had kept Getz or whatever it was, I would have been like, I would have made sense to build around Fields again. And I think he did take steps forward in all the areas that you wanted him to take steps forward this year. They just weren't very big.
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely would not take Jaden Daniels over Justin Fields if he was the best quarterback in this draft, or if we had the third pick or whatever, or JJ McCarthy, probably not. Like maybe Drake May, although I'm not as high on Drake May as other people. So like it's just the
Seems like
circumstances.
McCarthy. I mean, it's lie telling season, but McCarthy's getting a lot of steam as of late.
Oh, he's going top 8. I mean, he's going before the Bears' second pick.
Oh yeah,
I think that's pretty fair.
I don't think he makes it outside the top 4. It sounds like the Vikings are already pushing hard to get there. In the rumor mill by the same. I think it felt like Poles has always played the media and like had his hand in like what gets out there a lot, and it felt like the handling of this situation and the Fields thing was like some of his sloppier work. And then when it came out afterwards that, maybe they took a little bit less to to suffice Fields in the deal, it came from so many sources that it was like, I don't know, like it's just hard to say if that's really true. Without a doubt, the place he went is somewhere that's going to benefit Fields. And there is a relationship between Fields and Tomlin. Those are like, they've been said to be high on each other before.
Yeah. So, no, I do not buy that for a second. Maybe if they took less, it's not like they were offered a 3rd round pick or something, and they decided to take a conditional 6th.
Yeah.
Maybe they got offered, just a 5th or a conditional 5th round pick or something, like a slightly smaller, and like that I would believe. But it's not like and his value was higher than that. I think Poles did maybe not screw it up, maybe just waited a little bit too long. But yeah, I think actually that's a PR spin if I've ever seen one from the Bears.
I mean, I think to some extent, most people think that the best value you could have got from Fields was waiting until probably August and letting the water settle a little when someone needs a backup or someone needs, and someone looking at the outlook of their season and starting to stress that you probably could have got more for it then. So at the very least, shipping it now felt like a service to Fields. Picking
that's true,
and taking like a discount maybe isn't true.
Yeah. And I also understand why they wouldn't want to wait that long. Yeah, I don't think it was tenable to have, just that situation. It just would have led to a toxic workplace and environment. Like, just take what you get.
And honestly, one of the things I feel like I have as a takeaway with the Fields thing is I think the way that you welcome your rookie into the league is like important. And like I feel like with the Chiefs, it was like I don't think there was any conversation about. Maybe like it's going to be Alex for a year, Patrick, and then it's like going to be you. But with the way that the Bears handled like Fields and Andy Dalton that year was really, really weird. And like I don't think that was like very like indicative of a good relationship to them. And I bet you that Andy Dalton and Justin Fields would say the same. And I know that Nick Foles wasn't a great addition to that room either. Right. I think that, like that kind of stuff, the way you build that room is important. And I don't think that it would have been good to have Justin Fields in that room with Caleb Williams. If you're a quarterback as a rookie and you're thinking, if I make mistakes here, I got to be looking over my shoulder, then you're not going to be able to make the mistakes that you need to make. So that when it comes time to win games and maybe your second or third year, like those really, really important games, you've made those mistakes before. You know what windows are open and what are closed and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I do wish Fields could have, at the time when Fields was a rookie, I was yelling probably the loudest to start him and don't sit him behind Andy Dalton, and I think I was wrong there. I wish he would have, even if it would have been a less entertaining year as a Bears fan because Andy Dalton is so bad to watch. That was obviously more fun to watch Justin Fields. I think that hurt his development. I think it would have been better off with letting Andy Dalton start. And I also think he would have been better off if they stuck with Matt Nagy. I think he was a better fit with Nagy than he was with Getsy.
Well, dude, it's like if they had committed to the plan of Dalton for the year, you kind of like let Nagy wash his hands of that, and then no matter how bad they finish, you'd let him have a second year with Fields the next year. And it's funny how different things would have been if Dalton if Dalton doesn't get hurt. Like imagine how different like the Fields era is.
Yeah, for sure.
Either way,
on to the next one. As Bears fans, we're used to on to the next quarterback. Like you said, I also have a Justin Fields jersey that I'm probably not going to wear anymore. It's next to my Mitch Trubisky jersey and Jay Cutler jersey. So I'll probably hold off on the Caleb Williams jersey for at least a couple months.
Yeah, at the very least, like it's been fun as a Bears fan, like during our lives at least, that we haven't ever really got the quarterback thing really right, but the Bears have taken some swings, man. They really have.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
We're ready for the next one.
And I think we've talked about Justin Fields enough. We said our thing. He's no longer a Bear, so it's time to move on. And that is most likely 99% going to be with Caleb Williams, the USC quarterback.
C-Dub.
I know there are those reports out there that the Bears don't know which quarterback they're taking, and they're still maybe exploring like a trade down and draft someone else. I think that's absolutely bullshit. Like, I don't know.
Anybody in the know says that anymore.
No, I know, but like there have been those like rumors floating around, and like I don't know, maybe I don't know why the Bears would be floating that out there, but it just doesn't make sense. I mean, he's clearly the best quarterback in the draft. You need a quarterback at this point. Just take him. Take him. Don't overthink this. And don't take a lesser quarterback to trade down and
get to go fill out other holes in the roster. You actually have a pretty good roster coming together. You know what you do need?
Yeah.
Is a quarterback.
But yeah, I mean,
up and honestly, one of those things that I think we had kind of always pegged that 9th pick as one of the bigger holes in the roster was that wide receiver 2 spot, Steve. And since we last talked, that wide receiver 2 spot has been filled.
Yep.
By one, like what is it, 8-time Pro Bowler?
Keenan Allen.
Yeah. Keenan Allen for a 4th
round pick. We got Keenan Allen. My only concern about Keenan Allen, I'll just say this to get this out of the way, and then we can talk about all the good stuff. My only concern is probably everyone's concern is he's 32 years old.
Yep.
So how much does he have left in the tank? I think he has at least this year is going to be still a productive wide receiver, and probably next year too. But at 34, I don't know, but that's fine. That's fine. You don't need him for the next 10 years. You need him for 2 years. So, and like the way his skill set just is a perfect fit for what Caleb Williams does with the timing routes and with the option routes that he runs and just reading a defense and stuff like that. I think it's a perfect fit. I have this video is courtesy of Tom Cavanaugh, Tommy K _ NFL Draft, I think it is. So I'm just gonna play this kind of as we talk. But man, he's just such a good route runner. You'll see from this video, like the man just knows how to go. But I believe all of these routes are from this past year. So this is not like 22-year-old Keenan Allen doing this. This is 31-year-old Keenan Allen getting open in the NFL, and there's no reason why he shouldn't be able to do that this year as well. So.
Well, he had his most catches ever in a season last year, and he only played 13 games. Like he's still playing really high level football. And the thing about how he plays is he's not winning by taking the top off the defense. He's winning by understanding leverages and coverages and being able to get himself into open space before you. As corny as it sounds, it's an art as much as less than it is a science. And that's not something you really lose with age. So, especially considering he's not really running away from you. So he's actually someone that, someone into the 32 or 33 or 34 range, still playing at a high level is not surprising. Yeah. I also think he's unreal for the wide receiver room as a whole. Like, especially if we add a rookie or some young talent still yet to come in free agency, like he's like having another wide receiver coach. He's played in the NFL for a decade.
That's a very good
point. He wins in all those savvy veteran ways.
Right. Yeah. And he's a guy he's never been like an elite athlete. He's never been a guy who's like, oh, he's winning because he's such a better athlete than everyone. He's won, like you said, just because he's so crafty with his route running ability. So those guys age well. Like he's going to be just fine. And I do like what you said about him being like kind of mentor to, I mean, whether they draft a rookie at 9 or a rookie, I feel like they're going to draft a wide receiver in this draft. It's just such a deep wide receiver class.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, no matter where they draft one, like it'll be nice to have that guy come in and be able to sit behind Keenan Allen and DJ Moore.
DJ Moore, like a serious DJ Moore already got 5,000 yard seasons under his belt.
Right. And yeah, he's so good underneath. Like it's going to allow DJ Moore because DJ Moore did a lot of the underneath stuff last year, and he can certainly do that. And he'll still do it. But I do think he could be more of like a big play threat, and we saw it last year as well. But like I think you can really. Keenan Allen's not going to be that guy. DJ Moore is going to be that big playability guy.
Yeah, so I think like DJ Moore showed that he can be that guy, and then we didn't really have anyone kind of. I mean, you could argue that the underneath guy was something that Fields always kind of struggled with because that's typically going to be middle of the field stuff.
Yeah.
And it's going to be like timing route and like trust stuff with receivers that you'll build trust with when they have like option routes and stuff, which Field didn't really have a great chance to do other than maybe Mooney. But either way, it's something that Caleb Williams seems to do a lot more. The other day, I was actually watching college. When Fields got traded, I went back and was watching Fields' college tape. And I remember thinking, like, man, if I watched this again, I would have thought this guy was a good quarterback. Like, I would have thought, I mean, I think now one of the learnings I have are some of the things that made him, a risky quarterback. I didn't realize how important they were to the quarterback game. But also right after I went back on and put on Caleb Williams tape, and some of the differences are stark, man. The release is so much snappier, and just like the willingness to use the middle of the field is something you get a lot more with Caleb Williams, and something that he'll like really benefit from having a Keenan Allen. A Keenan Allen is
it still like doesn't feel
it's crazy.
Like Keenan Allen, like I never just like considered him ever to be a Chicago Bear, obviously, but like
Keenan Allen and DJ Moore.
It's a pretty good 1-2 punch. It's definitely top 5, top 7 in the league. Like I'm no less than that. Like it's got to be. I don't know. I don't have every team in front of me, but like
if we had taken any of the 5 receivers, if we had taken any of the 3 receivers at 9 and had paired them with DJ Moore without Keenan Allen, we would have been like, this is like a top 5, top 10, like because DJ Moore had like 1,400 yards, 12 touchdowns last year, and like we're pretty high in this rookie receiving class. Now, if they still had a rookie out room with Keenan Allen coming off of one of his better years ever, DJ Moore having his best year ever, adding Caleb Williams to it, should be good.
It's definitely a much improved room than it was last year, and then definitely much improved from 2 years ago. Adding both DJ Moore and Keenan Allen in the last 2 years is just crazy.
Seriously, man, that's a commitment to excellence at the positions that are important, and it won. Yeah. I think it actually did a really good job of like shutting up a lot of people that had issues with the way Poles was approaching free agency, in that like you just never know when some of these more expensive contracts are going to come up, and when they do come up, like those handful of middle of the road like guards or edge rushers that may have moved the needle at one position aren't going to make the difference that like something like a Keenan Allen becoming available will make the difference of. Which I think is awesome to see because we have to take on like 20-odd million for him to come onto the team, right? Which is no joke. But when you have clean books, it becomes a little bit easier, and you can make moves like that. But 2, it makes me think surprising how little has been done at that second edge position.
Yeah, if we're talking about kind of what this does for the draft, like I do think they could still draft a wide receiver at 9, but it does give you so many more options now because without Keenan Allen, you basically had to draft a wide receiver at 9. Like you had to get Odunze Neighbors. Otherwise, that room is just going to be terrible. But now it gives you some options. You could certainly still do that. You could trade back. You could draft an edge at 9, as you were alluding to. Like we definitely still need another pass rusher. You could draft an edge at 9. You could trade back and probably still get one of the top edge guys. I know, whether it's Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, Lei Tulatu, Chop Robinson, like Darius Robinson, like there are 5 pretty good, first round pass rushers in this class, and then not much after that. Mm-hmm. So I do feel like what I think is going to happen now is a trade back from 9, maybe to like 12, 13, not super far back, and then getting one of those pass rushers. I think Turner will be gone. Turner to the Falcons seems like pretty much a lock.
Really? Oh, interesting. Yeah. I haven't heard any smoke.
A lot of smoke there.
Because if I was kind of at the point now where I've started to do some edge stuff, and Dallas Turner really is impressive, man. I think he's good. If he's there at 9, I would run to the podium. I think. I mean, I
would take him at 9 if he's there.
I think no problem taking back is fine too, especially if you can get someone really fired up about one of the tackles, maybe, and maybe squeeze a premium out of them. But it is interesting. I think like what we do at 9 is like the kind of the crux of whatever's left at the offseason. It's the last big domino to fall. And I've heard people say that Poles loves to have picks, and it's an obvious opportunity to kind of recoup some of those picks that he's traded, to pick up, your Keenan Allens and your Ryan Bates and things. But the way the roster's kind of built out now, it does also give him the opportunity to just sit there and go best player available, which we don't usually get to do a lot. We've kind of had some positions like the last 4 or 5 years. There's always been some positions that you kind of have circled that says if we don't do something here, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. And to some extent, you could make an argument for every position on the team right now that if we had to go into the season with where it is right now, it probably wouldn't sink the ship. Maybe edge, but we went into the season with worse edges to start the year last year. Yeah, we've seen worse. And like this team, especially on defense, was really starting to hold their own down the stretch. If there's a chance to add a blue chip player at that position, I'm starting to think this roster is looking for more top end talent than it is like just competition throughout the roster.
Yep, definitely. I think this draft is very top heavy. So I don't think you necessarily need to trade down to accumulate more picks. I would not be upset if they did. But I think getting the best blue chip talent at 9 is the way to go. And it seems like either Dallas Turner is going to be there at 9 or one of the wide receivers, either Neighbors or Dunze, most likely or Dunze. It's looking like right now. And both those guys, in my opinion, are blue chip prospects and are premium positions and are guys who can contribute right away as rookies. So they're in such a good spot at 9. Like it's almost like a perfect spot to be in. I mean, I guess I wish they were like 6 and 6, 7 because then they would definitely get a wide receiver. But
totally,
it's still there's just so many options you could do. You could draft an edge player. You could draft a wide receiver. You could trade down. You can and then draft an edge. You can trade down and draft a D tackle. Get like a true like
right there.
Johnny Newton, Byron Murphy, one of those guys. Like, there's a
100%.
lot of different ways you can go.
Pretty high on Byron Murphy too.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. So, but I do think I like the idea of just getting a blue chip prospect on offense because I don't think, I think the Bears will be much improved this year. I don't think winning a championship or Super Bowl is the goal this year. So if they go into the season and have 3 really good wide receivers and get Caleb Williams like a really nice like introduction to the NFL, but maybe don't have a great pass rush, like I'm fine with that.
Dude, totally. I could not agree more. And I've said that like we had a team where it was like Mitch Trubisky or maybe in 2017 had like nothing around him and a pretty all right defense, or like Justin Fields this year had like a pretty all right defense and maybe the offense wasn't so good. And like people would say it was maybe for lack of trying or not giving out enough support. And it's like, I would love to just have one where it was like, there's no question about it. He had all the support in the world.
Right. And then if he fails, then it was just all on him. There's no debate. It's
just on to the next one.
Yeah, on to the next one. But yeah,
a week ago, we'll do it again.
I really like that idea of, because they still have a decent amount of cap room to work with, but there's not many great guys out there to sign. Any guys you're signing now are basically going to be 1-year deals, like stop gaps. So draft a wide receiver at 9. Build up that offense, draft another guy, just focus on offense in the draft and then make sure your offense is in a good shape this year. Next offseason, you sign the top pass rusher on the market.
Yeah.
And you're good to go. You can roll over all the money that you're saving this year.
For one. Yeah, 100%. And also next year, the Bears are still in a pretty good cap situation. We'll be, reaping the benefits of that rookie quarterback syndrome. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I know I shouldn't even do it. It's just next it's just funny because like you clearly haven't listened to this entire podcast or any of our podcasts before.
We were I think we were fronting we watched the Green Bay Packers game at the start of the season and called off the podcast all year.
We were just like, no, we're done. We're done. We can't do it anymore. We'll wait till next year.
Yeah, but it's fun because now the horizon's bright. Like I was just about to say, honestly, if you can kind of get your head around the fact that we're probably not winning the Super Bowl next year, if you can just accept that as a Bears fan, but set expectations fairly high because, rookie quarterbacks have done other things, and this should be a fairly good rookie quarterback, and the team should be really good. I'm talking not minimum, but like I'd like to see you get around, 6 to 8 wins at the least. If you can sneak into the playoffs and show some stuff, that's awesome. But into the second year, like you have the tools to build like a complete Super Bowl roster. You'll have 9 picks already in the draft next year. We have an extra second from the Panthers, and now the Justin Fields pick. And we should, and there should be money to be spent in free agency again. Like I said, Poles doesn't need to break the bank to like fill out or like to appease things that maybe don't seem like the strongest position group for the rest of this offseason. Basically, I would say like depth pieces are kind of his MO and are things that I think would be fine to fill out this roster. Like I said, the only one that really would be, as far as being a premium position and seeing how much Poles like to attack it, there does seem to be at least one move at edge left. Near the end of the offseason last year, we added Ngakoue. So if there was something that happened like late August, if, the reports in camp are that things are looking good and this team could be more competitive than maybe we think, we might see the Bears do something.
Yeah. I would be fine with bringing back like Yannick Ngakoue. I don't think he's signed anywhere. I'd be fine. Like Jadeveon Clowney's still out there. Even like a lesser guy, I don't have a list in front of me, but like just bringing in a guy who could be the quality, edge too. I know they like DeMarcus Walker, and I like DeMarcus Walker too. I don't think he's necessarily a second pass rusher, but if if he is your second pass rusher, it's not like it's not like the end of the world. It's going to be a weakness for them, but it's not, again, this year, I really don't care about what their defense looks like. I'm sorry. They can, if they get another receiver, their offense can carry them. I do think we need to, we should have high expectations for the offense and Caleb Williams. I don't think we should put arbitrary numbers onto it, though. I don't like seeing he needs to throw for 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns, whatever. I just want the offense to look good. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what the offense, like, what are they going to be, a run first offense? Are they going to? I don't know what Shane Waldron's kind of cooking up. So I don't want to put any of these arbitrary numbers on it. I just want them to look good. You know, an offense looks good versus an offense that looks bad just by looking at it. You don't need to look at this box score afterwards. Scouting the box score was a bad way to scout Justin Fields. Scouting based on wins and losses were a bad way to scout Justin Fields. It would be a bad way to do it for Caleb Williams as well. Just offense look good.
Yeah.
I want the offense to not look like it's struggling to move the ball in 14 of the 17 games.
Yeah.
I watch all these other offenses and teams are just moving the ball so easily, like down the field.
Oh my God, man!
Why does it never look that simple to the Beavers?
It always looks like we're pulling teeth, and it's like pressure release every time Justin was doing something good, for example. And it's like, why does it have to feel like that? Why can't it feel like you're dancing, like it's how it's supposed to look out there? Like when Justin Herbert's in the zone and he's just slicing it up and everyone's open.
Yeah,
and the play calling's cool.
Right.
Honestly, I saw a tweet today that was kind of again, one of the people I think was probably a Fields fan or advocate in this offseason saying now that we've all kind of settled into it's probably like a Caleb Williams future. I'm seeing a lot of people saying, temper your expectations. And he was saying that he was thinking people were kind of moving the goalpost, which is probably true. I bet a lot of people found out, okay, I've been pumping this guy as generational and now he's going to be my quarterback. He better be generational. And I was thinking, what are my expectations for Caleb Williams? Assuming he's the pick, which he will be. And I actually thought to myself, day one, he can't look like a bad quarterback. You know what I mean? He can't look like where it's like, Josh Rosen. It was like he never looked good. It's like you just have to show me flashes at least, or at least have those moments where you're like, he's got it. And two, do not finish the season worse than you started it.
Yeah,
that's all I care about. As long as I don't think this guy doesn't get it, honestly, kind of pretty early on in the Mitch Trubisky era, you were like, this guy just does not get it.
Yeah. I think to add to that, instead of don't look worse than the beginning of the year, I think he has to show improvement over the course of the year.
Yeah, sure. I guess I meant that, but that's a better way to say it. Don't stay the same.
Don't say the same. Look like a good quarterback.
I want to see the game slow down, even so incrementally. It can slow down so slowly that over 4 or 5 games, I'm like, Then after 7 games, I'm like, oh, maybe he is kind of getting a little bit better. That's fine. Because it's that's the expectation if you accept that the Bears probably won't win the Super Bowl next year. It's okay, quarterbacks usually aren't ready-made when they come out, but we're actually in a position where we're not going to spoil this quarterback with stupid expectations and bad supporting casts. It's fine if you're not perfect year one, dude.
Right. And I think it's totally fine to expect and hope, expect a playoff appearance because we have a good, decent roster. But if we go, 9-8 or 10-7 and miss the playoffs just because, that's how it works sometimes, that's not a failure of a season, depending on what the offense looks like. If it's the defense carrying us the entire way, then that's a different story. That's why I don't like the arbitrary, records. Because what if our defense has some injuries, or what if Montez Sweat gets injured and our defense is just awful and we're putting up 26 points a game but not winning in any games?
Well, it's funny. We kind of said going into this year for Fields, because it's looking back on it now, the decision to move on from Fields is obvious, but it didn't look like we were going to have a first overall pick when the season started. And and it also didn't look like we were going to have a good defense either.
Right.
And me and you were saying about Fields, we were like, we honestly don't even really care if we're losing these games. We need to know if Fields is the guy by the end of the year. And if we lose a bunch of games where he looks good, that's fine.
Yeah.
Because it is always about having the quarterback. And it's kind of the same thing here. But the thing that makes it funny is we do have a good defense now. You almost can't deny it. Down the stretch, they played great. They were turning the ball over and sacking quarterbacks at a rate we haven't done in or at least since like 2018.
Yeah.
And they were playing like pretty like awesome football. So like you almost want to say like honestly, if Caleb Williams isn't bad, the Bears should play good football, competitive football all year next year.
Yeah, I think there are, the thing about the turnovers that we're forcing is that seemed to be what's the word I'm looking for?
Likely
Unsustainable.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they're going to be a bad defense. Also, we know that coverage and cornerbacks are very volatile. So Jalen Johnson had just a crazy year. I think it's unrealistic to expect him to have the exact same year he had.
Yep.
It was just good that even if he takes just a small step back, he'd still be very good. And I think but it's like if he takes and he probably will, just because he had such a good year, it's impossible to replicate that from the cornerback position. I mean, the guys if he does, then we're talking top cornerback in the league territory, which is possible. But
again.
Yeah,
he kind of honed in all the stuff he's always been good at. He's always been really sticky. He's always been almost better about like avoiding targets than he is about breaking up targets. And then he did way better at the catch point this year too.
Yeah.
The thing is though, is like, he isn't really a boomer bust type guy, which is I think why some of the people that are sometimes touted as like the best in the league can have years where then, they get burned or like give up the most yards in the league. His style of game is likely something that's a little bit easier to maintain.
That's a very good point.
It's kind of similar to the way like Adrian Amos played, and that like you didn't really say Adrian Amos's name a whole lot in a game, and that was a better thing than I think people realized.
Yeah. No, that's a good point because the cornerbacks that like regress are the ones like you said who are jumping routes all the time and they get lucky one year and get like Deron Bland from the Cowboys and Trayvon Diggs also from the Cowboys. Who they jump those routes and they get 10 picks in a year, and then the next year they kind of fall back down to earth because now they're jumping routes and getting burned. But Jalen Johnson's definitely more assignment sound and is gonna. So that's a very good point. I don't like I said, I don't think he's going to regress substantially. I just think it's unrealistic to expect him to play like the best cornerback in the league every year.
And he did this year, so it's like
he was.
I honestly, I'd love to see how many times like that's like that's done. I bet you Jalen Ramsey probably had a couple of years where it was. Yeah.
Well, we're talking Jalen Ramsey, Darrelle Revis like territory, which I would love to have that conversation, but we'll see.
But yeah, that's it's. I honestly think come like training camp, I'll have this talk with myself where I'm like, I am being like too skittish of expectations, and like I'll talk myself into thinking like the Bears should be like a better football team than maybe we're giving them credit for. But it really is all just about like, it kind of lives and dies with the quarterback, as we've seen as Bears fans forever. And I think it's totally fair, despite how good any quarterback has looked in college, that making that jump to the NFL can come with some road bumps.
Exactly. And that's what this season's going to be about, is just finding out if we have the quarterback. I believe we do, but you don't know until you get there. There've been a lot of good quarterbacks who have flamed out. So, but as we've been discussing all offseason, Caleb Williams is going to come into possibly the greatest situation a quarterback number one pick has ever come into, like a 7-win team with DJ Moore and with Keenan Allen and with possibly another receiver in the draft. With Cole Kmet, with DeAndre Swift and Khalil Herbert, and an ascending offensive line.
A young offensive line, one of the better offensive coordinators, like over the last 5 years, like pretty consistently has got his team into that top 12, top 10 offensive range. And
just an offensive coordinator with experience, who was an offensive coordinator just this last year. Like most of the teams that have a first overall pick have fired their offensive coordinator and hired some random person because they have the first overall pick. So obviously their offense looked terrible.
An offensive coordinator that shouldn't ever have been available as well because their head coach retired or stepped into a different role. And
whatever you want to call it.
I don't think anyone would have said that Shane Waldron did anything but a great job last year. Although, unless you're Jackson Smith and Jigba.
No. It's still a long way to go in the offseason. We still have the draft. We still have free agency still going on. So there's a lot of things that can happen in the next month or so. That will happen in the next month or so.
That top 10 is in for a shakeup, man. There's a lot of rumors. I mean, it's rumor season, So you know, take everything with a grain of salt. But there's been a lot of interesting like notes that have kind of come out this year from people that in the past maybe have had, you know, some good information, but you know, some of these teams, I think a lot of fans will be surprised about some of the differences in public and like, you know, Twitter perception versus how the NFL views some of these guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, JJ McCarthy is one of those guys who's definitely going to be viewed higher by the NFL than the public.
Totally.
I wonder who, we don't know who the other guy is going to be. There's always one guy who's falling and you're like, I can't believe that guy fell there. And then there's always one guy who like, I can't believe they took him in the top 10 or something. So
it feels like that could be like Olu right now too.
Yeah. Olu, it's interesting with Olu. Like, is the fan perception low on him or is the NFL perception low on him? It seems like it's the
seems
NFL.
Like it's actually coming from the NFL, which is interesting because
the fan perception, like preseason, like before this year started, it was like Fashanu offensive tackle 1.
Seriously,
and like some people were talking up Joe Alt, but like there was a conversation to be had, and like now it's like, is he top 5?
Yeah, now it's Joe Alt.
Now it's Joe Alt. Yeah,
like,
for sure.
There was conversations. I know you love JC Latham.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people for a while, it was no doubt like Olu Fashanu. I think from a pass blocking profile, he is one of the cleaner prospects, and I'll really. He's so good, man. It's so nice to watch him pass block.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any like I haven't seen heard a mention of him in the top 10 or being the first tackle off the board in probably about a month.
Q and I, Buckus Stats and I talked about this about Olu Fashanu when we were doing our O-line podcast, and we were saying that Olu Fashanu was a top 10 pick pass blocking wise. Like, he's so smooth as a pass blocker, but when you get to but when you watch the run blocking, like he doesn't play with that like mean streak that I think the NFL likes. Like he just doesn't play with that killer instinct. It doesn't do enough of the run game. Like his run blocking, I think. So it's like a first round grade with pass blocking, a third, fourth round grade in run blocking. So like, what does that average out to?
Right.
Obviously, pass blocking is more important, but you still want your guy to be able to run block. So
he'll go early because of that. Someone will say, "Hey, we'll bet on that," because his pass protection game is so pretty. But it doesn't really seem like at the moment anyone's even considering him as OT1, which he was getting a lot of smoke for there as well. Well, let's hear your transition.
Well, I was just saying, speaking of offensive tackles, because I know Mel Kiper had the Bears taking an offensive tackle at 9 in his draft. Either I can't remember if it was a mock draft or he said he wouldn't be surprised if they take an offensive tackle. But either way, how do we feel about that? Well, what if they go with Joe Alt or Olu Fashanu at 9?
It wouldn't be sexy, obviously, but it would be honestly, like in my opinion, it would be proof of kind of what we've just talked about, that I think there is the expectation within the building that 2024 is kind of that last year of like figuring out what we have before we take a real stab at doing it for real. And if that's the case, and you're trying to play the good owner game here, you could look at someone like a Braxton Jones and say, you know, we're happy to start you again for another full year and draft someone in this position and just take a stab at it, because we're drafting a quarterback, and for the next 4 years, making sure that he's okay is the most important thing. And if you know, Braxton Jones finds out he's the guy, we have someone we can trade and make some support back that way. And if Braxton Jones isn't the guy, he'll go and probably get a good contract somewhere else, because his body of work so far has still been pretty good. We could get a comp pick from that, and then waiting in the wings is a top 10 or, you know, first tackle off the board type player to usher in, you know, the next kind of era for Caleb Williams there.
Yeah, my kind of hot take, I think, is that I would rather go with an offensive tackle at 9 than a pass rusher. For all the same things I've been saying this entire time, is I don't care what our defense looks like this year. I've seen too many Bears quarterbacks come into bad situations. So if Ryan Poles, I'm sure Ryan Poles likes Braxton Jones, but if Ryan Poles has any concerns or doubts that Braxton Jones is going to be a franchise left tackle, then you move on from him. And now you don't want to do that a year too late. You don't want to find out next year that Braxton Jones is not a franchise left tackle. That's bad. That would be a bad situation. So if there is any doubt in your mind, take a tackle, make Braxton Jones your swing tackle, move him inside the guard, which I don't really love, but do whatever you want with him. But if there's any doubt in your mind, go with that over the pass rusher. Make sure your franchise quarterback comes in without any excuses and with the starting cast. I mean, if they did go with the pass rusher, I wouldn't be mad about it, but I really want them just to go offense with that pick. And maybe you could also, offensive tackle is such a deep class, you could also trade down maybe I think Joe Alt's going to be for sure off the board by the time the Bears are on the clock at 9. But you could trade down and get Fashanu, J.C. Latham, Amarius Mims. I've been watching today. Is pretty good. Taliese Fuaga, Jordan Morgan, Furtado. There's so many good offensive tackles.
I've seen some people that think that Fuaga could be a good fit for the Bears, which is like something I don't know if I love. But
no, I don't love it either. I was just naming guys who were kind of in that range.
I was just sitting back in my chair thinking to myself, man, I think Steve's talking me into tackle at 9, honestly.
Yeah. I actually just came up with that thought like while we were doing this podcast, but I think it's a good one. I'm going to stick with it.
Seriously, if the Bears take a tackle at 9, it wouldn't bother me. I think it's a commitment to what we want to see on offense, and also like it's nice seeing Caleb scramble, but you can tell when you watch Caleb play that he wants to sit there and throw the ball, and it would be nice to be able to watch him work in the pocket.
Mm-hmm. The good news is if they don't go tackle 9 and they go roll with Braxton Jones, and let's just say, worst case scenario, Braxton Jones struggles next year. Shane Waldron has a lot of experience working with offensive tackles who are struggling and offensive lines that are struggling. And he kind of adjusted that offense to help Geno Smith with that and everything like that. So he has some experience dealing with that issue. And I think Caleb Williams also has just like a sixth sense when it comes to pressure. So he's able to make an offensive line look better than it is. Which is, one of the things that Justin just never was able to do. It's the opposite. He always made the offensive line look worse than it was.
Man, that's such a good way to say it. There's something to be said about like the way, like you just see it when a quarterback plays, where it's like if like maybe your left guard's getting backed up and like your right tackle is getting backed up, like stepping up into the pocket may work for just the tackle, or stepping back may work for just the guard. But the guys are the ones that just find that place in the pocket that's like as far away from all the different people as possible, and just have that feeling for it. Joe Burrow's amazing at it. Patrick Mahomes is obviously amazing at it. And it's something that you see all the time in Caleb Williams' tape. He's always doing a good job of just keeping himself like at the point that's farthest away from everyone else, and just like moving with it as the pocket moves. And when he can just set his feet so quickly, it's such a fun. That's going to be our quarterback, man. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. And speaking of Caleb, so we have the USC Pro Day tomorrow. Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus were spotted at the airport. They're on their way, obviously. They're going to have a large contingent of people at that Pro Day. So I think we're going to get some nuggets tomorrow and in the next couple days.
This week will be big. It seems like that's actually their scheduled pro visit as well. So I think they're going to roll this Pro Day right into the visit. I think that happens this weekend. And
they'll probably get dinner with them tomorrow night or tonight or Thursday night, whatever it is. And
And it'll be, you definitely will get those, those stories of Mitch Trubisky booking them a room under the name Jim McMahon or some stuff like that coming out. But these are important. I mean, to some extent, it seems that, they've already met with them, and I know they like the tape, and I know that there's some stuff coming out with the medicals now that's important, but I think the Bears have also probably gotten enough information that they were like confident enough to trade Justin Fields before this. So I don't think it's the biggest issue. But it's a big, it's probably one of the last important things that happens before the Bears, submit their pick, submit that card.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, we won't know for certain until draft day, because the NFL will not want them leaking any. They want all the drama in the world. They want people tuning in for the at the start of their draft to see who the Bears take. So we'll have reports, but I don't think we'll get. I know we won't get a declaration from the Bears saying we're taking Caleb Williams.
No,
it's not going to happen.
The amount of content we're going to get the last week of the draft, or the week leading up to the draft, about Washington's making this crazy last push.
Yep,
it's actually going to be a nightmare.
For sure,
it's fully going to keep me up. Like, I'm going to be like, Poles, don't do this.
We're going to end up with JJ McCarthy.
Not worth it, Poles.
It suck.
No, it is interesting though. It does look like. I think. As of now, the tea leaves are all pointing in the same direction, but it'll be a fun, the media acting like it's not a foregone conclusion at one to the next. It's really only like a month away.
It's 5 weeks away, I think, from the NFL draft, right?
That's crazy.
No. Yeah. Maybe 4.5 weeks away. So, man, it just sucks because I was just thinking about this today, and I was like, I feel like I've been watching tape since September because the Bears were sucked, and I'm still thinking like I haven't watched everyone enough of it that I need to. It's like how we get this far.
It is crazy. I was like looking at how many receivers I've watched, and it's like also this receiver class is insane.
Yeah,
it really is insane. But it's like I'm not even really through the guys that like everybody knows, and it's like I know there are guys too that like I've watched like the 3-minute highlight videos of, but haven't watched like game tape.
Yeah,
and it's like there's still so many guys that like I really haven't watched enough Ricky Pearsall or like Luke McCaffrey and guys like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're just watching Jermaine Burton, and then Xavier Leggett goes and runs a 4.20 or whatever, and it's like
they're so. I mean, the wide receiver class is so. I like Jermaine Burton a lot. Like Jermaine Burton is like very underrated. I didn't like Ricky Pearsall as much as I thought I would. I feel like I need to watch him again because he tested crazy. Like his combine was insane. So
yeah,
but
and he has that crazy, as much as I thought I would too.
Yeah,
he has that crazy. That one's a crazy one.
Everyone knows what you mean when you say that.
There's been a lot of like smoke in the last couple of days about Malik Neighbors being number one on a lot of boards, and like it's kind of like mainstream. And honestly, me and you and like kind of some of the other people that we in our circles have kind of like in hooded veiled like said this for a little while, but it's almost like now that everybody else is saying it, I'm almost like I want to know. I was like, well, Marvin Harrison Jr. is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is still my wide receiver one. I don't know if that's going to change, but I did bring this up back. I tweeted this out in like November or something that like, man, they're closer than you think.
Fully.
And like, I do think, I mean, we know that there will be teams who have Malik Neighbors as wide receiver one. Like it's going to happen. Doesn't mean that doesn't mean he's going to be the first wide receiver off the board, because if the Cardinals have MHJ as their highest, they're going to take him. But there will be other teams that don't agree with that for sure.
Well,
there might be some teams that have Odunze at one. I don't know. That would surprise me, but
couple interesting nuggets I've heard this week. One, apparently, Malik Neighbors is going to like blow up his pro day. There are people that think he's going to be a 4.2 guy, and even if Marvin Harrison goes out and runs something in the 4.3s, if Malik Neighbors' game looks as good as it does, and then he goes and does 4.2 and some crazy 3-cone stuff, it really makes it hard for him to not be in that conversation for wide receiver one. The second thing is like apparently most of the conversation to get up into range to draft JJ McCarthy has been through the Patriots.
Yeah,
which is like
the Vikings trading up to number 3, which seems high.
Yeah, or
that would be assuming, I don't know. We don't know who's going to go to either Drake May or Jane Daniels, but that would mean that JJ McCarthy would be the third quarterback off the board, which would be surprising. And that might be, I mean, if let's say the Commanders go Daniels, and then they trade up for JJ McCarthy at 3, like the Cardinals have pick 4, they're not taking Drake May. They say they take a receiver. The Chargers aren't taking a quarterback at 5. So like Drake May is in a free fall, probably the Giants, or someone would maybe trade up with the Chargers.
Right, or one of them. Apparently, the Giants are like very interested in trying to go up too. I think most of the people around the league really do think that pick's going to end up eventually being May, and then the third quarterback could be McCarthy before it's Daniels. But another thing too is apparently the Patriots are like in love with Malik Neighbors. So if they were going to go down, like someone like the Giants would make sense because they wouldn't really want to get too far out of the way.
Right. They could still potentially get Neighbors.
The top 10 is going to be crazy. It really will be.
My question here: how do y'all feel about if the Bears draft Brendan Rice? I think I'd be fine with it because like he's probably going to go in that 75, 125 range. I know that's a wide range, but it's such a deep wide receiver class. It's hard to really like pinpoint where guys are going to go. But I feel like he's going to go in that range. And at that point, I like him there. I think he's not. You have to separate yourself from Jerry Rice because he's not Jerry. I mean, he's Jerry Rice's son, but like he's not like that good.
Yeah.
But I think getting anything that helps your rookie quarterback. And if Caleb Williams says, hey, I really have a good connection with Brendan Rice and it'd be great to have him, you're not going to go out of your way to maybe get him, but you might bump him up a few spots on your board.
Sure, use it as a tiebreaker.
Use it as a tiebreaker. Be like, okay, we'll give him Brendan Rice. And you're talking about a 3rd, 4th round pick. But I think he's a nice prospect in his own right.
Yeah.
I thought he looked really good at the Senior Bowl, and like better at the Senior Bowl than what I thought watching his tape. Thought he had some issues on tape at the catch point and getting kind of bullied at the line of scrimmage. But I thought at the Senior Bowl he was getting open a lot. So I think there is something there as a complementary piece. And like if Brendan Rice is if you do draft Brendan Rice, let's say you go off the tackle or edge at 9 and Brendan Rice at 75, let's say, and he's your kind of like 3 wide receiver with Tyler Scott and Velus Jones and whoever else is kind of rotating in, I think that would be just fine. Like he's definitely in that conversation. So again, whatever, it's all about supporting your rookie quarterback is what we've all learned. If we learned anything from the Justin Fields era and the Trubisky era, it's do everything to support your rookie quarterback. So if that helps him, I'm all for it.
Yeah, it's really just a value thing, I would say, with Rice. There's a lot of players where they get drafted in the first round, I'd lose my mind. If there's a lot of players we could get him in the 6th round, I would feel like we got a steal. I like his game. I think he's a good deep threat, and he's got nice hands. I think if it like you said, if there's a benefit to it that makes that it fires up Caleb Williams, that's a benefit. I think he's a good enough player alone where if Caleb Williams wasn't our quarterback and the value is there, he'd probably be worth the pick. But there's this. I mean, he honestly, as good as I think he probably is, I don't think he's ever going to be an amazing receiver at the next level. But he honestly might be wide receiver 15 in this class. That's just kind of what this class is like.
I think his like ceiling is more of like a 3rd wide receiver, but a guy who could be like a good 3rd, like a Tyler Boyd kind of guy. Like I'm not comparing their games, but Tyler Boyd's been this 3rd receiver in Cincinnati forever, and he's been really good in that role. And I think that's kind of Brendan Rice. Josh Reynolds, yeah. But hey, if you get that at pick 75, pick 100,
totally
20, like that's a hell of a hit. There are definitely other wide receivers I like more, but yeah, he's definitely an option.
No, I think the conversation for wide receiver 1 and the conversation for wide receiver 4 should be interesting. I think that there's no question about Rome Odunze kind of dialed in there at that 3 spot, which is a shame because he's awesome. He really is awesome. And there's a very good chance that maybe he becomes a Bear, but
and then then you got like Brian Thomas and Adonai Mitchell, Lad McConkey for like 4. That'll be interesting as well. It'll also be interesting to see how that 2nd tier of wide receivers after Odunze gets drafted, because it is such a deep wide receiver class. So are you going to draft a wide receiver at pick 15, 20, or are you going to wait to the next round and get that guy? In my opinion, there's not much separating wide receiver 4 from wide receiver 10.
Yeah, and at that point, just let someone else make your decision for you. If you don't know who you want to take, it's like, cool, I'll just let someone else take that one guy, and then I'll take the other guy, whoever's left.
Right, exactly. So, like, I don't think it's going to affect the top 3 guys. I think they're good enough where you're not going to say, oh, we'll wait to the 2nd round to get our wide receiver. I think you get those guys if they're available. But the 2nd tier and 3rd tier, I think it'll be interesting to see how many wide receivers actually go in the 1st round. Even though there are a lot of wide receivers who probably should and can go in the 1st round, I just think teams are going to wait a little bit longer to maybe take that. Same thing with offensive tackle, because it's also a deep offensive tackle class. But I don't think it's going to be the same effect with offensive tackle as that is with wide receivers.
The most important position groups are really, really deep this year. Those good offensive tackles, 1 or 2, those good wide receivers, and it's there's also, I think it's a really good cornerback class. There's a bunch of really good cornerbacks. It's also like it's such a fun pick your like your flavor cornerback class. There's so many different ways that these guys get it done. Apparently the Bears love Terrion Arnold.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's a weak draft for like running backs, linebacker, safety, which are the non-premium positions, and I think the reason for that. Tight end too, yeah. I mean, Bowers is good, but then beyond that, there's a lot of question marks. There's some guys with intrigue, but a lot of question marks. But yeah, that's another one too. And I think part of the reason for that is guys are playing those other positions. If you're a good athlete, you're not playing running back anymore. You're playing wide receiver. If you're a defensive player, you're not playing safety. You're trying your best to play corner. You're not playing off-ball linebacker. You're rushing the passer. Like those positions, guys just don't want to play them for good reason because you're not going to get paid. You're not going to get drafted in the NFL. You're not going to get paid. So I think,
and if you're a tight end that's making some good NIL money at Wisconsin or wherever you are, and you're going to go get yourself maybe a little bit more to go to go to the NFL and forego a year of eligibility and maybe not get drafted, and then you can't go back and play college after. It's like, maybe I'll just go back and finish my eligibility. I'm making money here, and I'll go next year.
I think NIL has changed the NFL more. Well, not more than college, but it changed the NFL as well. And I think Poles knows that. And I think that's why he's felt more comfortable trading these day 3 picks.
Yeah, we talked
a lot
about
of those guys.
Some of these picks actually shipped out.
A lot of those guys, like you said, if you're projected to be a 4th, 5th round pick, and you're a junior, and you got some NIL money in your pocket, why are you going pro? I was like, I'm going to go back to college to see if I can get myself into a day 2 pick, possibly a day 1 pick. So
I don't get drafted,
and
now I can't make money doing either of them.
Right, exactly. It's not a deep draft class. It falls off pretty quickly at most positions.
It does, and I think
it's deep in offensive tackle and wide receiver, but edge rushers, like after those top 5 guys, it's not a lot there. It's not a lot.
Really, there's a couple positions like that, and honestly, it depends on how much you think, what you think of the quarterback class as well. I think there's always some of these late risers at quarterback every year that people learn to fall in love with. Like, I think Jaden Daniels, wasn't really getting talked about as a top 5 type player during the season, and then the season's over, and people kind of look back on the whole body of work and went, "Well, why aren't we?" Which I get, but it's like, how much you have to trust, like, the why aren't we versus the why were we, and depending on what you feel about the quarterback class, there's maybe 2 or 3 quarterbacks in this class that'll be good NFL starting opportunities, and after that, it falls off like a cliff.
Yeah. To me, it's a 1 quarterback class. I don't really like any of the other quarterbacks, and maybe I'm probably wrong because it's the hardest position to scout. But
it is crazy.
All right, we good. I think we cover everything. I'm dying here. I don't know if anyone can tell, but I'm very sick, so I'm really powering through here.
I think that was a good catch up in the last. It's been a busy 2 weeks in Bearsville. What else we missed? It seems that there's still some jostling for a stadium to be made in the suburbs.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that because
there's more business going on there than I realized. Yeah.
But it does sound like Arlington Heights is definitely still in play, which I don't know if I have a preference. Do you have a preference? Like, I don't really care as long as they get a new stadium.
I think it's it's more for people that will be attending more often. I think. I don't understand like the economics of it, like which it helps more, or like whatever one. I'll tell you whatever one keeps more money in the Bears' pockets is the one I.
That's the one I support, and
because right
now
anyone
knows what that is, please someone tell me what I should support, and then
seriously, this is the Bears right now. The Bears ownership is rich because they own the Chicago Bears, and there are other teams' ownerships that are rich for other reasons and then bought their teams, and it seems that there's a correlation between the level to which a team is run and versus like the way that the income is made. And if the Bears had a better income stream, or like they owned part of this so they could make more income off that, not only would it probably help the organization of the Bears, but also I think people sometimes don't realize it, that these teams need money. And as much cap space as you have doesn't mean that they actually have that money to spend. The last couple of years, there were a lot of people saying that the Raiders weren't able to go out and sign the people that they wanted to sign because they did not have the money in hand. And
I wouldn't be surprised if that was the Bears' issue this offseason and last offseason. They spent a lot of money on that Arlington Heights property, and a lot of they still have the cap space and everything. They just don't have a lot of cash on hand. I don't know. People could dispute all that I want. I'm gonna be a conspiracy theorist and believe it, and I think that's also partly why Poles traded picks for veterans, because you don't have to give them signing bonuses. So that kind of doesn't cut into your cash on hand as much. So I think that's part of his team building aspect, and I will believe that. And I don't care. You can come at me with facts that dispute that. I don't care. I'm going to believe it, and that's my right.
Facts. Bears are poor.
Yeah. I think it's nice to have a little bit of like a meatball Bears fan in you. Like, even if I try not to, like, it's always a little bit there.
Totally. I feel like this entire offseason, like for the rest of the offseason now, I'm going to be this overly optimistic meatball Bears fan. We have a fun, young quarterback coming in. The roster seems like it's competitive. We have a cool wild card of what we're going to do at 9, where we should be able to add a lot of assets or some really awesome assets. Fun time to be a Bears fan again, just like that. Honestly, dude, praise be to Poles. Sometimes it's not easy to see, the label from inside the bottle, but when the dust is settled over the last couple of years, the Bears are really in a good position, man.
I think they had when Poles was hired, they had a 5-year plan, and fans and rightfully so want to win every year. I do not think that was Poles' plan, but we're starting to get to the end of the light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully, and we can start winning some games and start doing podcasts because we'll be excited about talking about the Bears and not sad.
I think if you were Poles and you were looking at your 5-year plan, this would probably be the year that you circle. You go like, this is our last possible year of losing.
Yeah.
If we go into next year and we're not like a team that I would say like is a betting favorite for the NFC North, or at least like a wild card and like competitive in every game they play, although I want that to be the expectation for this year. By next year, like, you have to say now it's winning time. It's the Lakers.
Not to alienate half our listeners, but I'm a big Cubs fan, so I view this year as the 2015 Cubs. 2015 Cubs kind of came out of nowhere, shocked people, made the playoffs, beat the Cardinals in the playoffs, but didn't ultimately win. And then in 2016,
2018 Bears.
Yeah, and then exactly. And then 2016, the Cubs won the World Series. That's how I view this year. We're the 2015 Cubs. We need to show some promise, and stuff. And then next year is Super Bowl or bust. Not Super Bowl or bust, but Super Bowl. It should be an expectation.
The fact of the matter is once you have someone that you think is the actual guy at quarterback, and you have a good enough roster, it really is only about the Super Bowl.
True. Yeah. So that's where we're at.
This is the last year we let anyone off the hook for it.
Yep.
We have our expectations. We want to see people play good and get better. If we lose no games and if we win no games and we see that, that's fine. Better draft pick. But come 2025, it's serious.
Yep. For sure.
All right.
I think that's a good place to stop. We'll possibly doing the spaces tomorrow if there's some news after the Caleb Williams pro day. So Luke and I have been talking about getting into the Twitter spaces or X spaces, whatever you call it. So we'll see if we can figure that out. If we do, we'll tweet it out from the CFC account. We'll get that going. But thank you everyone for listening. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, all that stuff, and we'll talk to you soon. Bear down, everyone.
Bear down. Ugh.